as you know, that language curriculum development involves various processes, and it has several components. For example, to ensure the needs analysis, then setting up the goals, and then choosing instructional materials and making decisions about evaluation. The most important thing to be noted is the decisions about syllabus design. And if you remember, when we talked about the origins of language curriculum design, we just briefly discussed some of the earlier notions or concepts of syllabus design. Now we will take up those things again, and we will cover these things in depth now. Well, there are various types of syllabuses, and they're actually a specific syllabus. For example, if it's grammatical, notional, or functional syllabus, so it tends to reflect our view of language learning and teaching. So through the discussion of these syllabuses, for example, structural syllabus or notional functional syllabus, we'll come to know their characteristics, their merits, and their limitations. And that will stretch our understanding about types of syllabi there. While we are in the classroom or in an institute, working on a specific syllabus, so we will be better informed what sort of syllabus we are actually implementing in the classroom, and what could be its limitations and how we can address. So that's the rationale behind taking up this discussion upon the types of syllabi. Well, we'll start with the structural syllabus. Structural, as the term indicates, is just the grammatical syllabus. I mean, and it sees the underlying theory behind this one is it sees language learning as a set of rules. I mean, if you learn some rules, for example, if you know the rules of the grammar or rules of how to learn vocabulary, so you can make the meaning in a good way, or you can become a good learner. So it just sees language learning as rule driven, and everything about language learning is governed by rules. Okay. The rationale why this approach has been adopted from time to time within various curriculum designs is primarily it's very well established. I mean, since it sees language learning as rule-driven activity, and this is it makes the learners not only learn the rules but also apply those rules to learn new languages actually, and how the system of language works. Well, that's the rationale, and it has got some advantages. For example, it sees the structure of the language actually, the grammar of the language as a basic component of enhancing students' communicative competence. For example, if the students know the rules or the grammar or the syntax of a language very well, so it's assumed that they could do well in their role lives. Okay, right. So we'll continue the advantages. So, and secondly, another advantage is it allows the teacher to expose students to different syntax of language learning, or for example different rules of language learning. So by this structural syllabus, for example, the teacher could tell the students how preposition work, how adjectives work, and what's their function in a specific sentence, right? Well, there are certain limitations which we need to be aware of, and one of it just tends to overlook the relevance of the content. For example, it tends to overlook the issue of authenticity, because it sees language learning as rule driven, And if the students, for example, are exposed to some authentic materials, materials naturally occurring in the world of native speakers, so there might be some sentences which are not grammar based. The students could be confused. So that's one of its limitation, and it doesn't see students as individual. It doesn't see them as heterogeneous group. Rather, it sees them as homogeneous group having similar needs. For example, if one student can learn the rule, why not the other student? So actually, one specific rule can be applied to the other setting. Another disadvantage of structural syllabus, it sees, when we make decisions about sequencing and grading the content, so we might be experiencing some problems. I mean, what sort of grammar to be introduced in the beginning, whether we need to introduce high frequency grammar or some other type of grammar. So that's another limitation. And you might be interested that, if we have learned a rule in one specific setting, so it's very, in this changing world, it's very unlikely that we can apply that rule to the other language. So we can't transfer, the structural syllabus. I mean, it's not something which is a cultural heritage or something unchanging or something fixed. So on the other hand, language learning is something spiraling or cyclical in nature, which lays emphasis on openness to change. And so in brief, structural syllabus is all about teaching grammar, all about teaching language through the rules. And we have seen some of its advantages and disadvantages. And now we can better see, while teaching in our institute, what sort of syllabus we are teaching, whether it's structural or notional or functional.